Welcome to What Nobody Tells You. In today's episode, we're going to be talking with Edwin, and he's an electrical engineer as well as an engineer in other areas. Welcome, Edwin.
Oh, thank you, James. A pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. So let's start at the beginning. Was there a moment in your childhood when you realized engineering was what you wanted to do?
Well, I had a few different things I wanted to do. There was one point at which I wanted to be a garbage collector. There's a
Mm-hmm.
point where I wanted to be a priest, and there's a point when I wanted to be an engineer. But I think one of the formative things probably is my father and I used to dumpster dive. So
Mm-hmm.
growing up around here, I grew up in Union City. It's right near Fremont, but in the whole Silicon Valley, uh, as it was growing up. And my father and I used to go searching in dumpsters for cool trash.
Mm.
Um, and we would build things. We uh, built things out of things we found in the trash. We built one of those little Hot Wheels kid cars. The electrically powered thing runs off of a car
Ah.
battery. We pieced that together with bunch of different parts we found in the trash. So I was sure that I wanted to drive one of those big trash trucks. So I would get first dibs at the really cool trash. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, so, putting things together, building things, being able to turn one thing into another and make it useful. I think that's probably where I got my start in engineering.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So, was there anything else that fascinated you as a kid?
Um, Seeing things work, you know,
Mhm.
gears, motors, you ring the doorbell at the door and then a bell rings in the kitchen. Like, how does that happen? Magnets, how do they work?
Yeah. Who were your biggest influences?
Well, I already mentioned my father and my
Yeah.
parents are big influences in my life. I'm a first generation immigrant. They came over from Hong Kong, started a new life, got an education at UC Davis.
Mm.
So they've always been making what they can with what they can get. Like they built an entire life here from scratch,
Mhm.
arriving with almost nothing. You know, and without enough money to for a return ticket home. This is the
Mhm.
you got to make or break, and my parents have always instilled in me an inspiration for you know uh, doing the best with what you have.
Yeah, that's a good skill to have. Yeah. And is there anything that people misunderstand about engineers?
Oh, I mean, engineers are such a varied group of people, right? Like
Yeah.
people do engineering for all sorts of different reasons. For some people it's a job, for some people it's a passion, little of both. Um, so I think there are a lot of different reasons to get into it. So you'll find many different types within engineering.
Very cool. And what was it like walking into SpaceX for the first time?
Oh yeah, well, the first time I walked into SpaceX was for a job interview.
Mhm.
So this was 2008, kind of bottom of the economic crash. So finding jobs was
Yeah.
pretty hard. I think I'd probably talked to about 50 companies at that point. I just graduated from school.
Wow.
So yeah, interviewed and interviewed and interviewed and didn't get any offers. I finally got an offer from Lockheed Martin, probably
Mm.
with uh, a good word from my roommate who was working there. He graduated a year before me, so I think he got me an in. And then
Right.
they dragged it on for 6 months without actually hiring me. So I sat with a
Oh.
verbal offer for 6 months, but they kept delaying the paperwork and saying, "Well, you'll start soon. You'll start soon." And meanwhile, I'm thinking about bills and rent, and it's
Yeah.
starting to in that economy. Graduating and not having a job, I was getting kind of nervous, so I started interviewing again. Didn't get any callbacks, and found this table with a couple people on it with a handwritten like piece of printer paper that said SpaceX on it. A couple of engineers there who couldn't be bothered uh, to talk to me. They kind of just waved me off, but I left some information with them, um, and uh, did eventually get a call back, and also had found some of my previous high school friend that had worked there, and I think he um, maybe encouraged somebody to give me a call, and so I got an interview scheduled, flew down to LA, and walked into this bare warehouse. It wasn't much of anything. They had just moved to a new space, so it was folding tables, no lights, just kind of like a little desk lamp with an extension cord on a
No.
folding table and folding chairs, and that was reception. And did my first set of interviews there. And at the time, they were just about to fold. They had launched two rockets. Both of them had been unsuccessful. They were running out of money. And the
Oh.
interviewer told me that there was about 6 months of money left. So if I wanted to take a chance and work for this fledgling company, I could give it a shot. But at least they were honest with me. They said,
Hmm.
uh, in all likelihood, you'll be looking for a job again in 6 months. And at that point, I had been holding this promise from uh, this other company, and uh, it hadn't turned out. So I just
Hmm.
said, "That's it. I'm in. Let's give
Yeah.
this a shot."
If you're looking for practical help creating healthier relationships, understanding your emotions, and creating lasting changes in your life, I also work with people one on one. You'll find more information in the description. Yeah.
Flight 3 was my first flight. That was unsuccessful. The company scraped together. Flight 4 was successful, and then the company continued from there.
Oh, okay. So was it pretty small then? Not that many employees,
I
or?
wouldn't call it small. For an aerospace company, it was small for what they were
Yeah.
trying to do, but it was 450
Yeah.
people or so when I first joined.
Okay. So yeah, that is pretty. If you got to launch a rocket, yeah, that's fairly small. So what was the culture like there?
Desperate, I think,
Oh yeah, the
is pretty
desperate
fair to
culture.
say, and it remained
Hmm.
desperate for quite some time. I think one of the valuable things about that kind of environment, there's a lot of things that aren't great about an environment like that. It's very
Hmm.
stressful, of course, but the silver lining is that everyone feels like they're on the same team. There's not, well, my project deserves more resources, or, I think people should be helping me on this, or office politics. All that goes out the window. If the company doesn't survive, nobody has a job. And so everyone was focused on one single thing, which was make the rocket fly, get it to orbit, get customers to orbit, get revenue, survive.
Hmm.
And, we thought that that period would last a few months, um, but it was pretty dicey for a while. I do remember a time when um, we had run out of money and we couldn't pay our bills, so vendors would no longer sell us parts. And some of us
Uh-oh.
engineers started putting parts on our credit cards uh, to just build one more rocket to see if it would fly. And that was Flight 4, which was our uh, first successful launch. Falcon 1, Flight 4.
Wow, that's right by the skin of your teeth there.
Yeah, we were buying parts from the hardware store across the street from our parking lot.
That's crazy. Uh, and so if my research is correct, you were designing the engine controller for Falcon 9?
Yeah, that's right. That was
Yeah.
my main project. There was the control electronics for Falcon 9, and it was the first piece of electronics on the rocket that was designed for reusability.
Oh, okay. And maybe you can, for the audience, for people who don't know, what's an engine controller do?
Yeah, well, folks who work on cars would probably recognize this. It's basically an ECU. Does a lot of the
Hmm.
same thing: fuel and oxygen mix, throttling, starting and stopping the engine, right?
Hmm.
Coordinating the startup sequence of the engine, the monitors temperatures, pressures, things like that. The one thing it does that a automotive ECU doesn't do is the rockets are used to steer the vehicle. So the steering is done by moving the engine at the bottom of the rocket, which then rotates the entire vehicle. When the thrust goes one way, the vehicle
Yeah.
goes the other. So we have these electrohydraulic actuators that gimbal the engines, and the engine controller handles that as well, in conjunction with a bunch of software and
Yeah.
sensors all over the rocket. But where it actually moves is the engine.
Yeah, I remember seeing that just years ago, but for the first time when I saw the engines move like that, the first time I had seen one of those rockets, and that made an impression. I didn't expect that to be the case. I don't know if that was the first rocket to have that. First one I saw.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think most rockets are done by gimbling the engines. It's usually
yeah,
the most powerful thing on the rocket is the exhaust from those engines. So
yeah,
usually you either move the engines or you have some vanes which
yeah,
redirect the exhaust from the engines. In some
yeah, yeah.
cases, you have some thrusters at the top that will point sideways, but that's less
Yeah.
common.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I remember I could really see it, like I could see them moving, and I was, oh, that's surprising. Um,
Yeah, they do this little maneuver to test them out before they launch. They do the wiggle, and so all
yeah,
the engines will wiggle back and forth, and then they'll
uh-huh.
all twist. They do a little dance,
Yeah, yeah, maybe that's what I saw. It was a while ago, but
and if you're lucky,
yeah.
they don't all run into each other.
Yeah. Was there times when you were building the controller where you thought this might not work?
Um, Not really. I think the only
Okay.
thought was it has to work, right? Like you didn't
Mm-hmm.
put. There was definitely a belief that it's possible that it won't work, but there was really no need to put any emotional energy into that outcome, because that is the only outcome that matters is being successful. If you do everything you can to be successful and you fail anyways, at least you did everything you could. But there really wasn't time or energy to spend on the unsuccessful outcome, because then it's over.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. So you helped build the electronics for the first orbital booster to land vertically. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what was that like? What did that feel like?
Well, I actually wasn't there by the time the first orbital landing occurred.
Oh,
I
okay.
was on to my next job by then. But
Oh, okay.
I did work on Grasshopper, which was the suborbital test vehicle that used the
Mm-hmm.
same engine controllers to do those landings. So I stayed until it was pretty clear that the rocket had a good chance of success. Like by the time I left, Falcon 9 was flying to orbit regularly. So
Mm-hmm.
delivering customers, making revenue. The company looked like it would survive. My coworkers looked like they'd have jobs. And with, we had done some unsuccessful landings from orbit, and we had done some successful landings without going to orbit, just flying short hops up and then back down.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it was a matter of doing more tests and learning more, but it wasn't so much a do or die kind of situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So by the time it looked like it was stable, I was on to the next thing.
On to more challenging ventures.
Yeah. I mean, this is some friends and I had an idea for a company, and
Mm.
we were doing it nights and weekends style.
Oh,
And at some
okay.
point, you like I said before, if you have something you believe in, you really got to give it the best chance you can at success. And so at some point we're like, okay, we've been doing
Yeah.
this in our nights and weekends, but if we don't really give it our all and do this
Mm-hmm.
full time, um we will wonder forever, what if we had. And
Okay.
so we took the leap.
All right. And what was that venture?
So it
What was that?
started out with a signal problem. The idea was that radio signals, over long distances can be very hard to pick up. So it's really hard to create a long distance, low power radio link. Um, and there are many reasons for doing this. My personal reason for doing this is that I've always had a love for the ocean. I grew up watching
Mm-hmm.
Sequest and um, and hearing
Yeah.
about the adventures of Bob Ballard and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. And
Mhm.
one of the big problems they have is communicating with their submersibles. You either need to drag a long fiber optic cable, or use like a acoustic link, which has a lot of limitations. But radio signals don't work underwater because water is conductive and radio signals are electromagnetic. So
Mhm.
signals attenuate, they become very, very weak, they fade quickly in water.
Mhm.
So there are techniques you can use to recover very, very weak signals from below the noise floor. So
Oh.
by embedding patterns in those signals and looking for those patterns, you can recover very weak signals. In fact, GPS uses something similar to that. So the original impetus for this idea that we had was to develop a very long range, very low power radio interface that could be used on submarines, could also be used for search and rescue and Internet of Things, which didn't really have a name back then, but that was the thing.
Mhm.
Um, and it started from that and then eventually evolved into distributed beamforming, which uses that same technique, but also co ops other devices out in the field to cooperatively launch those signals longer distances. So you can imagine like your cell phone, if it can't get a signal, could talk to the other cell phones in the area and then together form a signal that could reach a longer distance. You also see this in radio telescopes. When you see,
Mm.
in terms of, for receiving, you'll see, 30 telescopes across a several kilometer area in a field.
Mhm.
And by using mathematics, they can combine those telescopes into one single telescope
Yeah.
that's several kilometers wide. And so we were using those same techniques, but for communication.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And what I'm not even familiar with what you had the example of cell phones. Is that something that's actually happening? Like currently?
Similar, yeah. So similar, not exactly in the way that we did it. Our
Mhm.
company wasn't in the end commercially successful,
Mhm.
but similar technology to that is used in current 5G. They do something
Hmm.
mostly from the cell towers. They do beamforming, and beamforming allows you to reduce interference by separating out different volumes of space. So, a cell phone is essentially a multiple access problem where many devices must talk to a fewer number of towers. And so we have different techniques to separate the signals so they don't all interfere with each other. Some of
Yeah.
them involve taking turns, so time division.
Mhm.
One speaks and then the other speaks, and they have time slots that they sign up for, so they don't step all over each other. There's frequency division, where different
Mhm.
devices use different frequencies. And so there's also a technique called beamforming that allows you to do volumetric division, where different volumes of space um, are either sensitive or not sensitive to a receiver. So it can pick out
Can't
a
quite
signal
get
from
that.
one's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it allows you to listen to one. You think about, you cup your ears in one direction. That's a very,
Yeah.
very basic form of beamforming, and
Uh,
you can hear more the
yeah.
things that are in front of you than the
Yeah.
things that are behind you. So if you have two people talking at you from behind and in front of you at the same volume, and you cup your ears, you're going to hear the
Yeah.
person in front of
Yeah.
you better.
Oh, so it looks in a specific place,
Yeah,
essentially.
it's a directional
Okay.
division technique.
And so the most people, actually, I'm not even sure, but in my mind, people are either engineers for spacecraft or for underwater things. Is it common for people to work in both fields, both areas?
I've definitely had some colleagues that I've seen in both. It's a a dark, cold environment that will instantly kill you if you step outside. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Deals with pressures in different directions.
Uh-huh.
It's a challenging environment where discovery is to be had. So there are definitely some common themes between the two.
Hmm.
And myself, having worked in also life support systems, a submarine and a spacecraft are both self-contained lifeboats basically.
Mhm.
So those types of things are pretty similar. They also have to work, right? Like if you're
Mhm.
responsible for the safety of humans inside, um, the redundant safety mechanisms that guarantee safety and survival are common between the two.
Yeah, interesting. So does one of them seem more, I don't know, is one of them more difficult or challenging than the other, or are they roughly on par? Or?
Um, yeah, it depends on what you mean by challenging. Like sometimes it's really the challenges are things like getting funding for scientific research.
Yeah.
Like ocean research is notoriously underfunded.
Mm,
Um, so there are different kinds of challenges, but from a technical standpoint, I think it's quite similar. Um,
okay.
Weight is a big difference, though. You can put a lot of weight into the ocean, but anything you make for space will be challenged for being too heavy.
Mm, okay, that makes sense. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, I reduced the size of the engine controller from Falcon 9's first version to Falcon 9 reusable. I reduced the weight of the engine controller by something by 4 or 5 times in the subsequent design, and I was berated for making it too heavy. Of course.
Oh, wow. Challenging. So, is there a certain pressure that you get knowing like that these systems that you're designing or building are so critical to people's lives?
Yeah, there's pressure to test. I would say,
Almo
like on the day of launch, you should have done everything you need to do to ensure the safety
Mhm,
of the crew, right? So really, the pressure comes at the time that you design the testing. So when you create something, you make a design. You also design the test program to ensure that it does what it's supposed to,
mhm,
and that any environment or situation that it experiences in flight um, is less than what you've already tested it for on the ground. So on the day of the
mhm,
launch, you know that there's this much margin between what your crew's going to experience, and above and beyond that is what you've already tested the equipment to endure. And you also know that, you know, statistics being what they are,
mhm,
you know, you test it to this much on one piece of, one particular engine controller, for example, but the next engine controller might vary by a certain amount. Or there might just be an accident, someone um, doesn't fully latch down something and it comes loose and it bangs into something, right? So
mhm,
things are also left up to chance. And in those cases, you design it for failure. So everything that we build for space, for example, is at least one fault tolerant. So, you can have one unit of something break and the other units that work alongside it can take over its responsibilities or shut off that part of the system in a way that
mhm,
won't hurt the other parts of the system, and
mhm,
then the other parts of the system can compensate for its loss. So we do a lot of this kind of analysis to a know what our equipment can endure,
mhm.
and b know that if it fails, how it fails, and how you can compensate for those failures without endangering the crew or the vehicle.
Okay. So the tests you're designing and the parameters are so rigorous and exacting that you can't really predict what's going to happen, but you do know that you did everything that could be done.
Yeah, I will say that
Yeah.
there's a portion of what happens that you can't predict, but
Yeah.
most of what happens because we've flown rockets before. We know
Mhm.
how much vibration they're going to experience. We know how much aerodynamic drag they're going to experience, how hot the heat shield's going to get going through the atmosphere. We know, how many G's a human can take before they pass out.
Mhm.
A lot of those things we already know, and it's really just the tail end of probability that you need to. That's the reason you have that margin, is because that tail end of probability you don't know about, but most of it you should already know going into it.
Mm. Okay. And what's your understanding of debris in space? How much has that been a factor in, because there's so much stuff up there, or whether it's, man-made stuff or just space debris of
Yeah.
other origin?
Well, the difficult thing about debris in space is a lot of times when there's debris in space, it stays in space nearly forever, right?
Mhm.
On Earth, we have gravity, we have wind, leaves will eventually pile up by the sidewalk, because of dynamic forces. But in a vacuum and in the orbital uh, space around our planet, things that are up there tend to stay there for a really long time. So that's a concern. In our current state of things, um, the space is still very sparse, even in the
Mhm.
places where we have the most traffic,
Mhm.
right? Like low Earth orbit. Space is still, and I say this with caution because that won't be
Mhm.
true forever, but space is really big.
Yeah.
Like the distances between objects, even though there are 10,000 objects in low Earth orbit, thereabouts, they're all very, very far apart. You think even if you were to space 10,000 objects out um, along the surface of Earth,
Mhm.
right? You'd have to walk a long time before you go from one to the other.
Mm.
So for the time being, space is still very big, but we need to be responsible about it. We're only ever putting more things into space right now, and those
Mhm.
orbits will get more and more crowded. And even though the probability of a collision is low, the consequence of a collision is very high
Mhm.
because one collision can create more debris, and at a certain density, eventually the chances of the debris from one collision causing another collision uh, becomes more probable, and that has a name. It's called a Kessler syndrome, where you can have a
Oh.
cascade of collisions in space, and then eventually, with enough collisions, that entire orbit becomes unusable for a period of time because there's just too much debris there.
Hmm. Do
And
you
right now, we are doing things like satellites do have programs to avoid each other,
Mhm.
right? So there's a database there. We maintain a database of satellite positions and orbits, and so we can predict where things are going to be. And satellites do move to reduce the probability of such interactions.
Hmm. Do you know, I don't know this. Has there ever been a collision between two functioning objects?
Um, I know for certain that there have been collisions between functioning and non-functioning objects.
Mhm.
I know there have been collisions, intentional collisions between satellites and anti-satellite weapons. So
Mm.
in a way, those are two functioning objects.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Specifically, two functioning satellites unintentionally colliding.
Mhm.
I can't say for sure.
Yeah. Have many satellites been purposely shot down?
It's a handful. I think you can count them on one hand.
Oh, okay, so just a few. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, as you're going through certain things, I'm realizing what I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, it's a big field. Like
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff out there, and I'm still learning things all the time.
Mhm. Yes, educational. So, is there anything, maybe innovation? Let's talk about that for a second. So, you're really innovating things, right? The things you're inventing things for the first time. Is there anything? Is there anything that maybe people misunderstand about that or unaware of that you'd like to share?
Um, I think, yeah, in engineering, a lot of times you don't see all the things that don't work. I
Mm,
think what I kind of alluded to this before a bit, but like the purpose for doing testing is that when something fails, you want it to fail in a place where it's not critical,
yeah.
right? And so people see the final product, but they don't necessarily see how many times you built something and it didn't survive the expected margin that you wanted for it to go on the vehicle, right? That vibration level or the temperatures that it needs to reach to be reliable
Mm-hmm.
in space or underwater or in someone's pacemaker, um, and you had to rip it all up and start over and go back to the drawing board.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of failure in engineering, and something I'm fond of saying is that failure is not the opposite of success; it's the price of entry. So when you see something in
Yeah.
engineering that is successful, it succeeds a long string of failures, but those failures are the price of knowing that the thing you built is going to succeed.
Okay. It works the same in dating and relationships as well. So,
Yeah, you gotta get used to failure.
yeah. Yeah. There's going to be
Yeah,
plenty of
I've
that.
had the privilege of failing a lot. Let's say that.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. I used to tell my clients failures, it's not like failure is unwanted. You want to fail because that's how you get there.
Yeah,
Failures.
and
Yeah.
and as much as you can, if you can set it up so that you fail in a safe place,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I mean, I think this is also true of raising kids and a family and things like that. Is you want people to have a place where they feel safe trying things, even if they don't work out, they're going to be
Mm,
okay,
yeah.
right? So that you can set up low stakes situations where you can learn things without the pressure of that success is absolutely necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely true. Like because really that's the learning process. That's what education is. It's like if you, like even with a kid, you ask them a question, I don't know. What color is this? They say black, it's blue. You tell them until they get it right.
Yeah, but you do it in a situation where getting it wrong is not a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And people can get used to trying things, get used to learning by failing. I think that's a really valuable thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we
Yeah,
used
I
to.
was
Mhm.
mhm.
Oh, I used to have clients do mock dates and mock relationship conversations to practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I was once on a cooking show, and one of the weird things that happened during COVID was that I was invited to compete on a baking
Oh,
TV series,
interesting.
reality TV show, and I did not do well on that show. I was kicked off the show in the very first episode.
Wow.
Um, so if any of your viewers have not had the chance to fail on national television in front of everyone, I highly recommend it. But
Fantastic.
one of the things that came out of that television show eventually became a high school outreach program. So we continued
Oh.
doing cooking and engineering projects with high schools based on the theme of this show. And one of my roles in that was to act as a champion for failure and
Yeah.
to be the representative to all of these high school students about what it's like to fail and what it's like to learn from failure, and that that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like I say, the success is not the opposite of failure. It is, or sorry, failure is not the opposite of success. It's the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
getting to success. It's the cost of admission.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. That is fantastic. And what about biotechnology, which you also have worked in?
Oh yeah, that
So
that
yeah.
was really fun. So a roommate of mine that I was living with is a genetic scientist.
Mm-hmm.
So her research deals with synthetic chemistry and eventually into CRISPR, which is this incredible genetic tool that we have for editing DNA. And
Mm-hmm.
she actually got me an in with that company. I was working as an electrical contractor at the time, so taking individual jobs with different companies to build instrumentation, often for scientists. So fond of saying I am not a scientist, but I make tools for scientists.
Mm-hmm.
These submersibles that I built to evaluate the health of coral reefs. Like, I don't do the science, but I make tools so that scientists can do their jobs. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of the tools I was hired to do was for this company that my roommate worked for, which was editing cells to make genetic cures for diseases. And one of the incredibly wonderful outcomes um, of this project was I actually got to work on science for a disease that I have. So I was born
Wow.
with thalassemia minor.
Mm-hmm.
So thalassemia is a single nucleotide error in the gene that codes for the hemoglobin in your blood. So
Mm.
people who have a erroneous copy of this gene, their proteins in their blood don't fold correctly, and this
Mm-hmm.
causes misshapen red blood cells. Now, lucky for me, I have one good copy of the gene, so it affects me in small ways, but I will generally live a normal life. Um, I grew up with some friends who had two bad copies of the gene, and that is a severe disease. Most
Mm.
people who have two bad copies of the gene, this major form of thalassemia, they do not typically live past 30,
Mm.
and it results in multiple organ failure, and it's a pretty painful progress of the disease.
Oh.
So we all grew up, kids with thalassemia, we all grew up being told that this disease is in your blood, it's in your bone marrow, there's no way to cure it, right? There will be
Mm-hmm.
these treatments that can reduce your pain, they can extend your life, but in the end, like there's no
Mm-hmm.
hope for a cure. And then CRISPR comes along, which is this incredible, gift that we got from
Mm-hmm.
bacteria, their way of dealing with virus DNA in their genome. We can repurpose it to edit our genes, and one of the things we can do is we can take that error out of the gene that causes thalassemia and other diseases like sickle cell
Mm.
anemia, which also kills quite a few people,
Yeah.
um, is a similar one. And we were working on a cure where we take those cells out of your body, we take it out of your blood,
Mm-hmm.
we edit those cells, um, and we can make copies of those cells that produce the correct hemoglobin and then inject them back into your body
Mm-hmm.
and have them colonize your bone marrow so your body now no longer has the disease. It's a pretty invasive process. Not everyone can get it. It involves chemotherapy, and you have to kill all of your existing bone marrow, right? Like it's a
Oh.
pretty serious
Yeah.
operation.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, as of today, the numbers are certainly higher now, but at the time, 20 people have been cured of thalassemia, and 20 people
Mm-hmm.
have been cured permanently
Mm-hmm.
of sickle cell disease, something we never thought possible.
Yeah.
Um, and I got to work on some small part of contributing to the science that is producing those cures. So that was
Wow.
really fun.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's
Yeah, my
fantastic.
first foray into biotech.
And did you have another foray into biotech?
Um, let's see. There's been little things. So I during COVID, I worked me and some coworkers, a bunch of engineers, basically
Mm-hmm.
sitting around thinking like, oh, this is this big, global emergency, and we're sitting around with all these engineering skills, and we're like, we want to do something to help. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so my coworkers and I started a nonprofit called RespiraWorks,
Mm-hmm.
and we worked on developing an open source, easily manufacturable ventilator. Um, So at the time, people were doing all kinds of things to try and stretch their ventilator supplies.
Yeah.
And people were using these ambu bags where they were like by hand squeezing these bags to keep people alive.
Yeah.
People were using splitters to divide one ventilator into multiple patients. So, people were really, really, they were both being innovative, but also very desperate, to try and
Yeah.
find solutions. And so we got together, and it became eventually a group of 200 engineers in 11 countries working together to build a fully functional, fully open source ventilator. So this was one was not kind of the emergency ventilator. Like I think other people were working on that. So there were other groups building these much lower cost, but you could build them in large quantities, right? So similar to
Mm.
CPAP machines.
Oh, okay.
What we were trying to do was build a ventilator that that had all of the features of a $50,000 ventilator at more like a $5,000 price, right? Like not $200,
Mm.
but something that had all of the features that you could, not only keep someone alive, but also assist their recovery. That was the big thing, is that you could make a
Mm.
ventilator that would keep people alive, but they would eventually need to be transferred to a full featured um, ventilator in order to make a full recovery. And that
Okay.
just transferring someone on a ventilator can injure them quite a bit. So we wanted to build that, and to build it in a way that any country with an automotive manufacturing industry had enough resources to build it, so it didn't use any real like special techniques to
Mm.
to build. And that's still an ongoing project. This hasn't it was never approved for medical use, so I just want to be clear that that never actually made it to patients. However, the entire design was made open source and license free, and other ventilators have used parts of the design in commercial ventilators.
Mm.
So we're sharing the engineering, and someday it may be a complete product on its own, but that day hasn't arrived yet.
Okay, so you just made all the designs for it open source, and then other people are using whatever piece they want to, or whatever saves them
Yep, that's
time or
right. Yeah,
money. Okay.
without any royalties, without any licenses.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And so you did another open source project with the plasma generator, right?
Oh yeah, that's entirely like for fun. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I really like about engineering or science is that you often get to show people something they've never seen before, which is very exciting. And
Yeah.
a couple years ago, someone introduced to me this plasma toroid, which is it's a globe filled with gas at a very
Uh-huh.
low pressure. So not unlike the like plasma globes you see, it's got that ball in the middle. You put your hand on it, and the
Yeah.
tentacles of plasma, dance along your fingertips. And this is something that's very common, and a lot of people have seen it.
Yeah.
Um, that's an electrically induced plasma, but there's actually another way to induce plasma using magnetic fields. And when you do it that way, instead of forming these tendrils, they form closed loops of plasma. So, like a
Mm.
donut of glowing gas levitating in space. And
Wow.
that was something I had never seen before. And I had no mental model for what that should look like, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe there's nuclear reactors and there's Tony Stark's arc reactor or something, but I had
Yeah.
never seen anything like that in real life. And I just thought that was so amazing. And at the time, there were some drawbacks to this design. There was huge, a huge community of people online, a bunch of strangers on the internet that had basically gotten together to design this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I learned that there were some problems that they were working on. I was like, oh, I could get involved in that. Like, I can
Mm.
contribute something to this ongoing uh, design that everyone's collaboratively creating, right? And these are all people that are volunteers. They're putting their time in. Same with the ventilator, and the
Mm.
other products that RespiraWorks designed. These are all volunteers putting in their free time to do this,
Yeah.
and creating something amazing. Uh, so I got in there. I made some changes to the design. I collaborated with some of the engineers. We solved some of the problems that were causing these circuits to burn out. So under certain circumstances, the plasma would extinguish, and without a plasma present, the drivers just pouring energy into open space without anything to absorb it, and it would blow the circuit up.
Mm.
And so we designed a mechanism to restart the plasma, to detect that the plasma had gone out and to restart it.
Mm.
And I also designed some cooling channels into the driver base to keep the glass sphere from overheating.
Mm.
The idea being that you could one day put this in a museum or something where it's unattended and it's running all day, but it won't get so hot that like someone would touch it and burn themselves.
Mm.
Right. So, and it's an ongoing project. Everyone is, there's a big online forum. We all get together, discuss the problems. People make contributions that then get folded into the complete design. And it's a real great way to work with people on something fun.
Yeah, it's great to see that there's groups of people around the world working on things like that together for, that they don't have to do and they're not doing it for an income. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. If you want to find these things, they're called plasma toroids. There's a bunch of
Hmm.
people on YouTube who have built them. If you want to find my specific version
Hmm.
of it, I call it the plasma transformer. So if you
Oh,
search for
okay.
either of those terms, you'll find our work.
Okay.
And you can
Plasma
build your own.
transformer.
We publish all of the plans for free with instructions.
Oh, wow. I didn't come across the instructions. So plasma, can you say the two names again?
Yeah, plasma toroid is the more
Uh-huh.
general term, and my
Uh,
particular version of it is the plasma transformer.
all right. Fantastic. So just open source in general, do you think maybe there's a future where open source is more common, where things are more collaborative? I mean, what do you see happening now, and what's your understanding of how open source is working and where it's going?
Yeah. It's extremely encouraging. Open source has only been increasing
Mm.
in volume and intensity. Many projects are now open source. Even projects that aren't free are open source too, because when the design information for a product is published, it means that you can audit its design. So, for example, for security software, even for security software which has licensing and is sold for profit, even then there is a culture of making these things open source so they can be reviewed by customers, by adversaries, by experts, by competitors, even to find flaws. So that again, the more you test something, the more you know that it's going to work. Um, and in addition to that, right, there's still also this growing culture of people producing things for free, for people to use. Right. One of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
my hobbies I've been getting into is astrophotography. So this is
Mm.
taking pictures with telescopes, and almost all of the tools in astrophotography that are used by hobbyists are made by other hobbyists and distributed for free.
Oh, interesting.
So there are all of these interlocking pieces that people have donated. It's got to be at this point hundreds of thousands of hours, if not millions of hours of volunteer time developing all the things that do color correction and that align the stars and that, apply colors to different gases that are detected in distant nebulae. And all of this stuff people have done on their free time, published to the internet, and just shared with everyone else for free. It's
Well,
really quite amazing.
yeah, yeah, that is
Just so
that
that we
is
can all
fantastic.
stare at the sky.
Which is great, right? Yeah, you showed me I remember I'd looked in your telescope and you sent the picture that you'd created from it. It's pretty, it's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
wild what you can see from your backyard, and a lot of the work that went into, converting that from the light that comes out of a telescope into a beautiful image. A lot of that work was donated by people on the
Uh,
internet who just wanted other people to see the same beautiful things.
yeah, it's so great. It's really, yeah, that's heartening to see that stuff happening. Let's ask some more philosophical questions.
Sure.
Do you, let's see. So why should we continue exploring space?
Oh, simply because we don't know what's out there. I think
Hmm.
so much of our human progress has been about admitting what we don't know and then trying to learn more. So
Hmm.
as long as we have, um, I'll give you an example. Actually, this is a thought experiment that I like to play. Is that
Mm-hmm.
the planet Venus, right? Like Venus is completely covered in clouds.
Yeah.
Um, uh, say for a moment that we could survive on Venus in the ridiculous temperatures and toxic atmosphere and whatever. Um, uh, Even then, we would never see any stars. We may never even see birds flying, right? Because of the cloud cover. And
Yeah.
if you just imagine what human culture, what human science would be like if we had never been able to see that there was something past our world, right? That there was something more beyond, kind of our immediate environment. Like, think about how much looking at stars drove humanity forward, right? Like, um, calculus was developed by watching planets, these stars that wouldn't stay in place like the other
Mm-hmm.
stars would, right? Was developed by following stars. Um, I think the separation of colors in light was found by separating light from stars. So much of music, of art, of poetry came from knowing that there was something beyond what we know now, that there are mysteries to follow. And it's not that we wouldn't have had other chances, other mysteries to solve, but I think that there being this really big dark expanse full of things that we can't explain, I think drives us to understand new things. And I hope it keeps us humble too, to
Yeah.
know
That.
that there are things that we don't know, that we don't know at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. I hope so too. So, do you think there's a relationship between exploration and self-discovery?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you allow it, right? If you
Yeah.
allow your curiosity about the world to blend into curiosity about yourself, then you'll benefit from that.
Yeah.
You can ask questions about yourself. You can run experiments on your own consciousness and your own psyche, and your own life, your own biology as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I spend a lot of time doing that. So, yeah. And I was always
Yeah,
interested in
good on you.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. We all have the right to be explorers. I think we're born with it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it seems inherent, at least with a lot of people. I know with me, I think I saw Star Trek when I was three, maybe two or three.
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah.
fixated for life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think those are good dreams to instill
Yeah.
in people young and old.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh-oh, here comes the subject. Artificial
Yeah.
intelligence. Here it is. Um, so what effect or effects do you think AI will have on engineering?
Oh, huh. I think the most accurate answer to that is to say we don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. But a lot of where it goes depends on how we use it. I
Hmm.
think that it's there's this powerful new thing on the block. It exists. It's the genie's not going back into the bottle.
Yeah.
But how we use it and what we use it for is still, at least I hope it is, still up to us,
Yeah.
right? I'm concerned that a lot of those decisions are made by fewer and fewer people, right? That
Yeah.
inherently, when you have a powerful new tool, the people who make those tools often end up controlling those tools.
Hmm.
So there is a risk that it will give a small number of people power over a large number of us. Um, uh, but I'm also encouraged to know that we have survived things like this before. The Industrial
Hmm.
Revolution was a similar story.
Hmm.
So, and that's not to say that it didn't, both create prosperity and harm for a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? There will be tumult, and there will definitely be people who win and people who are harmed by this. And the degree to which it's one or the other is up to us and how we use it, and also how we hold the progenitors and controllers of that technology um, responsible for its proper use.
So really the same as, well, the internet itself, who controls it and who gives you access to it.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
now
another
it's,
good example. We're still
yeah,
learning what
yeah.
that's like. We still don't know what a world with the internet really looks like.
Mm.
Um, it's still really just a baby.
Yeah, it hasn't been around all that long. 30
Yeah. So the answer
years.
is we're going to have
Yeah.
to learn. We will the future, especially for AI, is not written, and we're going to learn what that world looks like and what we want it to look like and how to properly interact with it.
Yeah. Have to have some lot of discussions about what our priorities are and how we want it to look.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
answer is unfortunately in the future,
Yeah.
and we must prepare ourselves to be the ones to answer that question. But we don't have the answers yet.
Yeah. Still at the beginning. So shifting gears again, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
Um, I spent about a year working at a coffee shop,
Yeah.
and um, I will say the number of people that I was able to make happy with a cup of coffee
Yeah.
um, will that is probably the thing I'm proudest of, and
Okay.
I hope someday to be able to go and do that again. Um, but yeah, just it's amazing how something simple, a bit of attention
Yeah.
to detail, a bit of attention to what somebody wants, and that human connection, how much that can make somebody's day. The number of times I've had someone having an absolutely awful day come into my coffee shop and get a coffee, and then just feel like their world is okay again with this cup of coffee in front of their face. Um, that's precious to me.
Wow. So you're a fairly good barista.
I make good coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know where to find me. Come by. I'll make you coffee anytime I'm
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. That's great. That's
So
great.
one of the great pleasures in life is that you can make somebody a drink or a meal or something, as a way of communicating that you care about them.
Yeah. And it's immediate. You can see the result right then. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Like it really brings you into the moment.
Yeah. That's nice. Yeah. Yeah. Cooking for people can be a real way to connect and share.
Yeah, it's a real joy.
It's great. Yeah, I've been watching that show, The Bear, lately. I don't know if you've been. If you watched that?
I haven't.
Okay, yeah. It's about cooking. What would you do if money wasn't a consideration? Like, what would you be doing? Would you be making coffee or?
Um, I would like to say I'd be making coffee. That being said, I think that there are some really big challenges in our world that
Mhm.
not everyone can solve. Right, like each of us is born with or acquires a certain set of talents. Um, and pardon me. um, and there are some problems um that this world needs answers for, and
Mm.
um, some of your unique skills may be needed for that. So we don't always, we can't always do exactly what we want to do. I think that there's a responsibility to serve your community with the skills and talents that you have. So for me at this time, it's climate change. I think that's one of the biggest priorities for the well-being of our entire planet and all of our friends and community and family and all the people we love. Um, and so, even if I didn't need a salary to pay the bills, I think I would still find myself working on climate, because I think as an engineer, some of those solutions require engineering. Um, but
Yeah.
I would love to have a coffee shop on the side. That would be nice.
Okay. Yeah. Nothing says you have to do one thing.
Exactly. I always had this dream of having a coffee shop slash science education uh, shop, right?
Yeah.
That like kind of like an after school program where parents could drop off their kids, get a cup of coffee, and then their kids would get to learn about some science thing, or just have like a little mini museum in there with science demonstrations that kids could learn from. I thought that would be really fun.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, actually. Yeah. I definitely haven't seen it before. So if there's something, is there something that people maybe in your field, in your area that you've seen that you believe would be helpful to a lot of people, just knowing that information, uh, that you could share?
Hmm. Um, yeah, there are certainly lots of things. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. Um, but yeah, I mean, one I already mentioned is that failure is the precursor to success.
Mhm.
I think if we saw it that way more often, um, we would all be better off for it. And if we judged each other less for failures, I think we would be better off for it.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah, I don't know.
100%
There are
on
other
board with
ones
that.
like you can open a banana from the non-stem end, and it's a lot easier. That's a good one.
Oh, okay. That is pretty good. Yeah, I saw that somewhere before. Yeah, haven't thought of that in a long time. So, just a question or two. What's your varied, careers in all these different areas? What have they helped teach you about humans, about human curiosity and how humans are?
Hmm. Oh wow. Yeah, I think we work best when we all have the same goal and the same mission. And I know that's not always possible because people have very different needs.
Hmm.
Um, but the more that we can produce an environment where we all feel like we're working towards the same goal, that what benefits me benefits you, the better off we're going to be. And that's the happiest I've ever been, was when I was in an environment where, and still where I'm in an environment where everyone feels like they're working towards the same goal.
I love that. Yeah, cooperative things. This world could use a lot more cooperation, I think.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean we all
Yeah.
need to be doing the same thing, right? And it doesn't
Yeah.
even mean that we necessarily even need to be working for the same goal, and maybe there's a better way to say that,
Yeah.
but that all of the goals that we each pursue
Hmm.
contribute to a future that we all believe in, right? That
Uh-huh.
it gets us to a place that we're all happy that we're going,
Yeah.
even if within that we are, pursuing our own particular version of that, or our own
Hmm.
particular component of that future, but that it all contributes to something that we can all be excited and optimistic about.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I'm on board with that. Well, Edwin, thank you for being on What Nobody Tells You.
James, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's been really great. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode. If today's conversation resonated with you and you'd like to explore working together, I've included a link below where you can learn more about coaching and schedule a complimentary discovery session. Hi, guys. If you could like, subscribe, follow, share, that way I can help bring you more information and better podcasts in the future. Thanks.